Alright, so in this video I'm going to talk about the concept of serialization as part of the Java 7 package. So to my understanding it's not changed since Java 6, but the definition of the serialization or serializing is the process of translating an object into something else. So this could be either a file or another JVM instance. So if you create an instance of a class, you can then store that or transfer that over to a JVM. So once you store it as a file, for instance, it's called persistence. So you're storing the object into memory, into a file. The concept of persistence and serialization, the naming convention tends to be interchangeable, but there is a slight differential there. Taken into account, as you would expect, dependent on which path you take, whether or not you're storing the file or you're transferring it over to a different JVM, dictates which method you're essentially using. As part of the Java exam, it doesn't actually say serialization is in the actual exam into the actual exam topics itself. But there is the concept of the different types of methods that you could be essentially using. So I'll cover these in more detail, but just to note that it is an exam and you will need to know the different requirements on how to use the different methods. So I'll go for a quick demonstration of just creating a class, and let's call this what am I intending to do. What I'm going to do is create a hash map, populate that, but then store it into a file. So once I've done that, I can close off that that object stream, and what I'll do after that is then reopen that file and then pull back the return values that are stored within that value itself. So if I create, let's say, think of a name. Let's call it fruits. So it's a public main. So let's say I have a string value. Let's say the file name is going to be in the directory 2. So file equals dir2 file 5, and then the extension, let's just call that data. So that'll be the directory in which I'm intending to populate the file. What I'll do now is just create a hash map. So map fruits equals new hash map. What I want to do here is include the generics. So I'm going to give it an ID and then a string value. So integer string, and then on the same side add in the generics there, and then importing the utilities as well. It's probably asking me to import the hash map as well. Good. Alright, so far so good. So now I'm creating a new hash map. What I'll do is, I don't want to call it capital F, fruits.put, and then I'm going to say 1, and then my first fruit is going to be I had an orange today, so an orange. And then I'm going to put another fruit in, banana, give it a different ID name, and then also let's say Apple. Very simplistic. So now I have the intended file. Now I have the hash map populated with 3 values. So what I'm going to do now is export out that hash map into a stored file. So I'm going to say object, object. So I'm going to output the stream value. So let's give it an instance name, and then say new object output, and then brackets. So what I'm doing here is creating the an instance of the object stream, but within the wrapper of this method, I'm going to open a file. So I'm going to say new file output, and then the value there. What's wrong with this? Because I'm trying to try and locate the file. I'm going to put in an exception, IO exception, to see whether or not it's not found. File not found exception, as well as an IO as well, because I'm writing to it. Okay, so I'm creating a new output stream, and then I'm wrapping that round with creating the object output stream. So now I have that initiated. If I do a write object, and I'm going to put in the hash map, which is fruits, and then I'll close it off. OS close. So what I've now done is stored the hash map value into that file itself. Obviously it's not a readable format, but what I can do is now retrieve. Obviously it's stored there. I can, it's a data file. I can transfer it, that sort of thing. What I can do is also input the object back into the application, just to show that I can actually read it and then return back the value itself. So very much the same process that was done before. But instead of output stream, do an input stream. So OIS equals new object input stream, and then new, so the file output stream, I'm doing a file input stream. And then grabbing the file name. So once I've got that, I can then do a map. I know it's an integer. I know it's also a string. Call it a name. New fruits equals the object value. OIS read object, I believe it is. There it is. Something wrong with this. Cannot convert. It's just probably asking me to cast it rather. And then also, it's asking me throw exceptions as well to see whether or not the class can be located. Okay, good. So if I do a system out and get the map, or the hash map again, give that a run, I can now, what I've done now is looked at the file and imported it back in, and then presented it back. Okay, I just had to stop this clip. I had a phone call, but basically what I've done here to freshen my memory on what I just did for you guys is probably just simultaneous. But what I did was create a file, created a hash map, imported that in, created a file output, and then had a wrapper of the object output stream around it, closed it, added it in, closed it off, created a input stream, and then assigned the object within the input stream to the new value and then displayed it. What I've just done here is the persistence of the file aspect of the serialization. What my intention is now is to demonstrate a more comprehensive functionality of serialization. So more to do with the transfer of the objects that you create as a stored value to then be opened up again. So files are very sort of simplistic to understand. Objects are a little more complicated, but again, not too much. So let's say I want to create a car, but then I want to inherit a superclass, but then I want to make that superclass instance that I create serializable. So if that didn't make any sense, which I assume it didn't, I will demonstrate. So let's say we create a class called vehicle. The interface that gets assigned to the class is serializable. We don't need the public main. So when we say it's serializable, it implements the interface and assigns it to the class. So what I'll do here, actually, I'll create a new class, and let's call it car. And then instead of the superclass being the objects, let's search for the one we just created. Vehicle, there we go. And let's create this the main. Excuse me. Okay, get rid of all the rubbish. So let's say vehicle v1 equals new vehicle. And in here, let's say we want to pass in some values. So let's say the model, so that's Ford. And let's say the value is, the color is blue. Actually, let's go blue. Why not? Let's say it has 4 wheels, and let's say it costs $10,000. There we go. Because we haven't created a constructor, if we click here, it will create one for us. So when we create, actually this shouldn't be extend vehicle. So if we just if we execute that, compiles, that's good. So in here, we're just going to store the values that gets passed over. So this was model. Color, wheels, price, and then let's say this model equals model. Actually, we put in the private, speed it up. Private string model, private string color, private int, price, wheels, and then private string, last one, price. Oh, good. So now when I click here, it's already assigned for me to select on the drop down. So wheels equals That's awesome. And this price equals price. Good. So when we create an instance of the vehicle, passing over these four values within the constructor then get saved into private. Very good. So, but let's go back to the point. So the intention here is to, let's say we do a sysout. One thing to note, you guys probably know it already, is that if we do a v1, so we're just printing out the vehicle instance, it will give us the object value, the representable value associated to the instance itself. We don't actually want that. We want the string value. So if we override the toString method, so let's say public toString probably asking me, yeah, string, and then let's say return. I'm just going to speed this up. Alright. So let's return value model what a shamble. Wheels price. Would have been easier to write it out. Color the model. Semicolon on the end. That's good. Alright, so when we run this toString method, we'll actually return back the value. So once we click it again, I'll override it and then pass the values there. Very good. Let's just add a couple of spaces in there so it's all tidy. Oh, good. Still not happy with that. Do apologise. Whatever. Okay. So let's say we want to store this object instance. So let's go and then type try object output string rather string, same concept that we did before. Object stream new file output stream. Now let's have where we're going to store this. So let's say string file dir2 file 6 ser. So trying to create that for the purpose of here, let's just put a highest level for section. Good. And then WS write objects. be 1, and then let's close it off. Close. Good. So if we run that, should compile. That's all good. Let's actually just get rid of that. We don't need to have that anymore. Another thing to do is add in. So now we've outputted it out into the file. Just do a refresh. It should reside here. It'll just show a lot of gobbledygook we don't really care about. But essentially what it's doing is storing the instance. Now we can, if we wanted to, we can actually pull that instance back in. Oh, one of those notes. Object input stream instead equals new object input stream, and within the wrapper file input stream, and then we're pointing to the same file again. So once we've done that, what we can do is then declare it to a new value. So object obj equals the OIS.readObject method. So now what we're doing here is whatever information is stored within that object file, it's then added back into the object, the new object instance. So let's make the assumption that well, let's apply validation to this. So if we do an if the object is not equal to null, then what else can we add? And let's say, well, we need to make sure that the object is an instance of the vehicle. So first of all, we're making sure that the object isn't null, and we're also making sure that the object is an instance of the vehicle object, vehicle class. And if it is, we'll do a we'll declare a new value. Vehicle, let's say v2 equals objects. Probably ask me for the casting. Just making sure that the generics is all set. And then if we do a sysout, we can do the v2. Oh, looks good. So when we run that, we've now pulled back in the object, and then we return back all the values. Simple enough. One thing to note with serializable is that we might not want to transfer over specific values. So let's say we don't want to show how much I paid for the price of the vehicle. So one thing to add in here is the transient. So what we want to do here is ensure that the file, ensure that the value of the object, specifically a specific value of the object, doesn't get transferred over when it's serialized. So let's say we don't want to transfer the price. So instead, we can add in the specific value, transient. So this ensures that when we create an instance and when we serialize it, this value doesn't get sent over. So if we do create the car and run it again, it's not presented, it's not stored within the object itself. So that's one handy aspect. So that practically covers the fundamentals of the serialize package that you'll need for the certification. I hope that became as entertaining for you as it was for me. But at least it gives you concepts, and good luck.